Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Ralph Becker, the mayor of Salt Lake City, and joined here by many distinguished participants and other officials today. Let me just tell you how we're going to be going through this, and then obviously we'll be happy to answer some questions. I'm going to make some introductory remarks. West Valley Mayor Mike Winder is going to speak. Park City Mayor Danny Williams is going to speak. Then I'm going to turn some time over to City Council Chair J.T. Martin, and he will introduce several other speakers who have been participating and certainly have a major interest in what we're here to talk about today. Today marks a great moment for us in Salt Lake City. This moment, this day, reflects the hard work of many people for more than 2 years. And I see many of them are here today. We believe that the extension of our anti-discrimination ordinances to cover the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community in employment and housing reflects the city's commitment and ongoing standard for protection of for protection and inclusion of everyone in our community. It is a primary measure. I'll wait till I pass it if you want. It may help those of you who are trying to do audio. Okay. You know what? I can't figure out which of these mics is really working, so okay. Thank you. These ordinances, I think, reflect what we consider to be essential in shaping the city that we want as a great American city. I've mentioned already that the work that's culminated with the effective date of these ordinances today has been in progress for more than 2 years. Our city attorneys have worked extensively looking at every possible approach to effectively protect our community and to do it within the context of our unique Utah setting. Our Human Rights Commission spent more than a year assessing discrimination in our community and looking at the history of what's been done not only in other places but around the community. The message that we are sending, I think, with the effective date of these ordinances is one that we hope will be well received across not only Salt Lake City but across other communities in Utah and across the country. And I say that not only in terms of reflecting what we feel is so important about discrimination, but also in the approach that's been taken that we feel reflects the kind of approach that we hope is inclusive of everyone, not only those affected by discrimination, but those who have to address discrimination in employment and housing. So let me just run through really quickly the simple process we hope people will understand and be able to follow if they feel they face discrimination. A concerned individual can file a complaint in the city in our Office of Equal Employment Opportunity, and that person will do an initial assessment of the complaint. If our independent reviewer determines that there is a basis for a complaint, they will either recommend that for further investigation or conclude that there isn't a basis, and that will be the end of the complaint. The next step is one to try to obtain a voluntary conciliation of the parties involved. The person against whom the complaint is filed will be interviewed. And at that point, the administrator could determine not to pursue the complaint. If the administrator believes there is the potential for conciliation in the effort, or even if they don't, they will ask the parties. The administrator will ask the parties to come together in a conciliation process. if at the end of that there still doesn't appear to be the ability to bring the parties together and to resolve the dispute, the administrator will then pass the complaint on to our city attorney. The city attorney can then pursue an investigation of their own, determine whether or not there should be an appropriate legal proceeding that could include a fine and some civil enforcement to obtain the end of discrimination in the individual case. I want to emphasize that this ordinance is not providing any special treatment to any class of folks. What it is doing is created a much needed process to address discrimination against individuals and to achieve what we all want in our community, which is an end to practices where someone is singled out based on their lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender orientation. We hope that the simplicity and the sensibility of this ordinance is one that will serve everyone in the community well. I'd now like to turn some time over to Mayor Winder and then to Mayor Williams to talk about how they are looking at pursuing and considering the ordinance in their community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Becker. Today, fair-minded people around the state applaud your city for prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation and sexual identity in matters of housing and employment. I join that applause and express my gratitude for the groundwork that Salt Lake City has laid. The trail that you have blazed in creating ordinances that both prohibit discrimination and yet protect religious liberties is to be commended and makes it easier for other cities to follow in this path. As the mayor of your neighboring city, of Utah's second largest city, I am pleased that my city council has joined me in asking our staff to prepare similar ordinances for us to consider in the very near future. In West Valley City, we have residents who have been discriminated against in housing and employment who have shared their stories. These citizens don't need special treatment, but they deserve the opportunity to seek shelter and to thrive or fail in a job based on their merits and not to be prejudged because of their orientation. Some have been perplexed that a Republican mayor like me would be in favor of these anti-discrimination ordinances. To that I say they do not truly understand the potential of the party of Abraham Lincoln, who taught us about human dignity and civil rights, that when the Declaration announces that all men are created equal and entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that it applies indeed to all Americans. We may disagree with a neighbor's lifestyle or preferences, or acting on tendencies they were born with, but a Lincoln Republican would not seek to make second-class citizens out of anybody. Standing up against discrimination and prejudice and bigotry is not a Republican virtue alone, for it is an American virtue. And when I place my hand over my heart and pledge with liberty and justice for all, I mean what I say. It has been chilling to hear those that say, if I own an apartment building and am morally opposed to homosexuals, please allow me to evict and not rent to those kinds of people. After all, aren't there other places in town where they can live? Those gays can live? When I hear that, it's as if a voice from Jim Crow America was haunting us from a dusty history book saying, please don't allow those folks with a different skin color in my housing development. Aren't there other places in town where those people can live? Such attitudes are not dissimilar from a shop owner that refuses to hire Catholics or Jews, or a restaurant that refuses to serve Asians. These attitudes of group hate are wrong and un-American. Some have been perplexed that a Mormon, like me, would be in favor of these anti-discrimination ordinances. To that I say they do not truly understand the teachings of Jesus Christ as I have been taught in my church. I have been taught that we should love one another, that charity suffereth long and is kind, that we should do unto others as we would want done unto us. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to lose my job or have my family lose their housing because of my sexual orientation. Standing up against prejudice, discrimination, and bigotry is not a Christian virtue alone, for it is humanity's virtue. And even if you believe different from me and behave different from me, you are still my brother or my sister in the family of man. And in Salt Lake City today, and soon in West Valley City and elsewhere, we will continue our human family's journey toward dignity. Thank you.
Now that's a tough act to follow. On behalf of the Park City community, we'd like to congratulate Salt Lake City on this momentous occasion and the enactment of this legislation. When this passed in Salt Lake several months ago, we've spent the last 3 or 4 months actually looking at around 50 ordinances from around the state and what their effects were. And we've had one community outreach program so far, and we've met with the 4 largest business groups in Park City. Our City Council was unanimous in moving forward with this, and it is on our agenda for passage in 2 weeks on April 15th. So I would like to congratulate Salt Lake County. I'm going to keep my words somewhat short today. But I think to us, we kind of looked at this as the Tao of duh. That if you are going to have anti-discrimination, it includes everybody. And so we look forward to passing this and working with the other cities in Salt Lake that are, in Utah that are going to be passing this shortly. Thanks.
As chairman of the council, I want to first express the great and wonderful gratitude I have to work with my colleagues, who are a thoughtful, considerate, deliberate group of people that I believe Salt Lake City is very fortunate to have come together at this time. We don't all think the same, we don't all agree, but we're civil and we discuss. And I think, without exception, every decision that we've made has been one where we've come together, and most often it's a unanimous decision. This decision that we made as a council was unanimous as we looked at the points of this discussion. You know, our country and the world around us is becoming so polarized and contentious and divided. And I'm glad to say, and I'm happy to say, that I live in a city that's been able to escape that till now, and I hope will always do. I'm proud and happy and grateful to raise my children in a city that understands that we all walk on different paths, but we're all going to get to the same place. I believe that. And I want my children to understand that everyone has worth, and that you can't judge people by their orientations or their religion or their ethnic background. It's not right. I'm happy to be in a city where all perspectives are welcome. Salt Lake City has always been thought of and discussed around the country as a city for families. Families come in all different ways. The important thing is that there's love, nurturing, and that hope is given to children that whoever's raising. There's been talk about unraveling this city's good work for equality. And I want to say to those people who are contemplating this path to stop, reflect, think about what it is they really truly want for our cities, for our state. Let's bring civility. Let's don't be polarized. Let's don't be divided. Let's don't be judgmental. Let's be a place that embraces, a city, a state that embraces all. All people who want to do the right thing, except people who are trying to be the best they are. So as we go forward, I'm optimistic that this ordinance, this way that we're going to go, will stand. And Salt Lake will continue to be known a place for all people and families. because that's what we're about. So, time will tell, but I'm grateful to be a part of this city, as I have said. We'll next hear from Tom Wood, who is the president of the Utah Apartment Association. Thank you.
Thank you, JT. As president of the Apartment Association, I'd like to express my gratitude to Salt Lake City for involving landlords in the process of drafting this new anti-discrimination ordinance. The city has met with us on multiple occasions and has addressed our concerns and incorporated many of our suggestions. Almost half of the citizens of Salt Lake live in rental housing. So the importance of understanding and preventing illegal discrimination is very important to the UAA. The Utah Apartment Association and its members believe that illegal discrimination is wrong in any shape. Our association advises all landlords to consider applicants only on their ability to be a good resident, not on issues such as gender orientation or sexual preference. There is place in our city for diverse tapestry of people, and we encourage all landlords to comply with this new ordinance. The city has been very sensitive to the business of property management by including us in writing and implementing this ordinance. Once again, we thank the Mayor's Office for involving us and look forward to working with Salt Lake City to make the community a better place for all its citizens. Thank you.
Sorry, just so folks know, John Bennett is going to be speaking, and then the Director of Equality Utah, Brandy Bacher.
Good morning. Good Friday. Good Friday. My name is John Wells Bennett, and two of my great-great-grandfathers were mayors of Salt Lake City. Daniel H. Wells was the third mayor of Salt Lake City, and Jedediah Morgan Grant was the first mayor of Salt Lake City. And their portraits are hanging on the third floor of this building. My great-grandfather was Heber J. Grant. He was the Mormon Church president in the 1930s. My grandfather was Wallace F. Bennett. He was a United States Senator for 4 terms, serving from 1950 to 1974 under 6 U.S. presidents. And my uncle, Robert Bennett, is currently serving as a United States Senator from Utah. And finally, I would like to acknowledge my parents, Bonnie and David Bennett, for all their support and for coming out today. Now, the reason I'm giving this family political history is to underscore the fact that you can be fired simply for being gay from the state of Utah, as I was in 1986, working for the Department of Community and Economic Development. I was also a budding gay activist that year, and I was involved in our Gay Pride event at Sunnyside Park. We had 600 people in attendance, and that broke all previous records, and we were very excited about that. Nowadays, a Pride event in Salt Lake can bring in anywhere between 20 and 30,000 people, but in 1986, that was truly something to be happy about. Well, the Salt Lake Tribune did an article about our Pride event, and it was a very positive article. And I wrote a letter to the editor of the Tribune thanking them for writing that article. Well, the morning my letter to the editor was published, I went into work only to be told that I was being let go. As I was leaving the state office building behind the state capitol for the very last time, one of the senior members of our division took me into his office and said how sorry he was that I was being fired for being gay. He thanked me for writing that letter, and he told me it must have taken a lot of courage to have written it. I vowed from that day forward that I would never work anywhere where my sexual orientation was not known and accepted by my employer, and I've kept that vow for the last 24 years. But today I'm ecstatic that if you are an employee working in the city of Salt Lake, you can no longer be fired simply for being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgendered. But I urge you to contact your United States representatives and senators and tell them to pass the Federal Employment Non-Discrimination Act this year. In closing, I'd like to thank from the bottom of my heart Salt Lake City and my employer, Salt Lake County, for their extraordinary leadership in the area of employment non-discrimination. This is truly a Good Friday in more ways than one. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brandy Balkin. I'm the Executive Director of Equality Utah. And this morning we would like to congratulate Mayor Becker, the Salt Lake City Council, and the Human Rights Commission on the implementation of these human rights ordinances, the first created in Utah. This process is a template for other cities and counties to use in engaging stakeholders about discrimination. I'd also like to acknowledge Mayor Winder of West Valley City and Mayor Williams of Park City for their work with their city councils and their residents. Today we also celebrate your dedication to passing similar ordinances for your residents. Equality Utah is committed to providing these common sense and widely supported protections for all Utahns. We are working for 10 in 10, the drafting and adoption of human rights ordinances in 10 cities throughout the state in 2010. Today we are publicly launching Communities for Common Ground, a statewide program that will educate and engage the public. We're geared up to work city by city, standing with residents and local governments. And we're also laying the groundwork for a statewide passage of these protections in the 2011 session. Communities for Common Ground is a comprehensive process that will go far beyond the boundaries of an interim study. Equality Utah will be holding public discussions from Logan to St. George and Tooele to Price. Communities for Common Ground will take this discussion from Capitol Hill to kitchen tables all across the state of Utah. At the end of this process, Equality Utah will create and publish the definitive report on discrimination experienced by LGBT people. A copy of this report will be provided to each state senator and representative in preparation for the 2011 session, bringing the conversation back to Capitol Hill. Again, I want to thank Mayor Becker, Salt Lake City, and the Human Rights Commission for leading out with these incredibly important and inclusive human rights ordinances. We applaud your work, and we invite all Utahns to join in creating a fair and just Utah. Thank you.
Thank you. On this cool April morning, it seems appropriate that just as we're finishing this press conference, the sun is coming out. I want to thank, again, everyone who's contributed so enormously, not only in Salt Lake City's ordinance, but also Salt Lake County and communities across the state. It has taken an enormous effort to get to this point. We have certainly a lot of work in front of us to make sure that we implement this ordinance in Salt Lake City well. We have a team of people who are committed to that, and we look forward to making sure that in our future in Salt Lake City, that everyone stands to benefit from anti-discrimination. So thank you all for being here, and be happy to visit with you, probably individually, as you wish.